because eventually they're going to want to bring in a 20th team. Are they better off bringing them both in at once? Hello everyone, welcome to Eddie and Jimmy on this Wednesday as we get set for another big round of football. Make sure you send us all your information, all your questions at eddieandjimmy@9.com.au. Brought to you by Hyundai. They've got the sensational cars and, why wouldn't you want to get a beautiful Hyundai at the moment? The SUVs, the electric SUVs, Jim, they are just sensational. Beautiful cars. They charge up fast and they go the distance. So great stuff there. And you can drive out to the airport, leave it there, and jump on the Fiji Airways and get up there to magnificent Fiji on the way to America. You can stop off at Honolulu. You can stop off at Vancouver in Canada, which, by the way, is one of the great cities of the world, if ever you're thinking of doing that. And maybe even later in the year, Jim, one for you. I'd go to Big White in Canada, fly into Vancouver, and go to Big White for skiing with the family, the kids. It is as good a holiday. My mate, Michael J. Ballingall, runs the place up there. That's not solicited. That's just from my own experience. Get up there and he'll do a good deal for you. Tell him Eddie sent you and he'll look after you. But you can also, of course, go to Los Angeles and San Francisco. So the world opens up on Fiji, the friendly skies. And they are our great friends.
Disneyland might be the one for the kids, Ed. Hey, we keep getting a stack of questions through. You can hashtag Ask Eddie and Jimmy. I want to ask you this one because it's a big one, and it's from Robert. Stuck in the middle. The AFL brought in the wildcard weekend to incentivise teams to keep trying to win games at the back end of the year by extending the finals, but then with their next decision, they go and heavily incentivise a team to finish in the bottom 5 of the ladder through the changes in the draft. The same draft changes which will likely need to impact those teams that lose the wildcard games the most. Why would a team try to win a few extra games to finish 9th and 10th, or only to be rewarded for their efforts with the draft and trade value of both their first and second round picks being diminished now by inevitable bids that teams in the bottom 5 will make on academy father-sons? How do these changes not just create a bigger gulf between the top and bottom teams, or a glut of teams which are stuck in no man's ladder on the ladder for longer? Pretty good point of view that Robert makes.
Totally right, Robert. Yep. They haven't thought it through. For some reason, they need to keep changing, but it's like, there's a problem. Right, let's fix that problem. No one thinks about the knock-on effect. And the whole reason why we fought for, and I did lead the charge on having the week off beforehand, was not only because of the tanking situation, which was a horrible disgrace in the 2000s, was brushed under the carpet, but is a stain that will remain on our game forever. But it was also to facilitate everybody to get their tickets, get set, and as a result of that, the preliminary finals used to have 35,000 people. Now, granted, it was a different ticketing way of doing things, and now with electronic ticketing, it makes it a lot easier, not queuing up overnight for a series ticket. But we got 96,000 for Western Bulldogs and Hawthorn, the biggest crowd they ever had other than the 1963 grand final. So there was a lot of things that were actually working and have changed it, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, the changing to the father-son and also that situation, I mean, you hate to say it, but the quicker we get to an unencumbered draft,
look,
the better.
Can I just offer my 2 cents worth? And I don't have an issue with the changes. It was just more the timing of bringing the changes in. Now, the AFL say, well, clubs are warned. Yeah, they were warned, but they actually never got the detail. And detail is important, of course. So they've gone and made a lot of decisions in the last 2 years in particular on list strategy off the back of free agency. And I'll use the 2 big deals regarding Hawthorn and Essendon around merit, and then, of course, Carlton and Sydney around Curnow, that they were, the opportunity to trade 3 years into the future, a draft pick. So they've had all these suite of things. Now, yes, they were warned, but until you actually have those details in play, you're not going to play with those set of rules. It's, okay, I'm aware that you might do it, but you might not do it. There's still lobbying going on from 3 clubs regarding, can you hold them off? Can you grandfather them? So there's still the nuance need to be worked out. Now, in saying where they landed, I don't have a big issue with what they actually came up with. But my suggestion would have been, this is what's happening, and this is going to start once Tassie has done their 2 drafts. So we always refer to history for things, but then they didn't refer to history on this one. And what I'm getting to is, when GWS and Gold Coast came into the competition, it was a bad time to be bad and it was a good time to be good. So the teams were already in strong positions and, they have had their drafts and they had their lists at that perfect window or clock or whatever it may be, 70 to 100 games. They could actually remain stronger for longer because the bad teams couldn't really go down and get full toll out of the draft and do some good deals there. So it was a good time to be Geelong. It was a good time to be Hawthorn. It was a good time to be Collingwood. It was a good time to be Sydney. Now, I'm not saying those 4 clubs wouldn't have been successful, but it was a pretty good time to be good at that stage. When you think about, Collingwood with premierships and challenging Sydney, Hawthorn, Geelong, all doing that.
Well, we had a meeting at that stage, Jim, and we said, right, someone could win 4 in a row here if you get this right. And as it turned out, Hawthorn won 3 in a row. Yeah, they got it right, and we played in two grand finals, won one, you won one. Then played preliminary finals those years. So it was plus or minus. St Kilda dropped off towards the end. The Dogs dropped off towards the end. And as you said, Sydney came in. And that's exactly your point is right. It skewed the whole system.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, yes, we want to set Tassie up really well. We can do that. But don't we want all current 18 clubs to be in a stronger position? Now, clubs will make bad decisions, but give them the opportunity to be as strong as possible leading into Tassie. So that means Essendon getting, what the current arrangement is. Carlton getting what the current arrangement is. Port Adelaide getting what the current arrangement is. And, it's going to hurt because we'll always look at Brisbane winning a premiership, then adding another star player. But we sort of have to park that emotion and make sure all 18 clubs were very, very strong. Tassie happens, but you've announced again, hey, look, guys, you've got a couple of years to work on it. Make sure you've got your ducks in a row because there's no whinging and no complaining because we told you once Tassie go draft, we're, as you said, as uncompromised or we're going down that path.
So, Jim, can I put this to you? And I mentioned the other week about, do we hold back Tassie another 2 years or another year? Okay, they're going well with the VFL competition. They've pushed back the stadium. The stadium still worries me. That's only going to get more expensive. But would the AFL, and this is, they'll blow up AFL House when they hear this, but are they better off, because eventually they're going to want to bring in a 20th team, are they better off bringing them both in at once? And just saying, right, let's push it back 1 or 2 years. No big deal for Tassie. I mean, there is a big deal for Tassie because they're getting themselves set. Okay, but are we better off, rather than do what we did with GWS and Gold Coast and sort of limp through, and it dragged on and dragged on. But if you're going to go to 20, if that's your decision, and there has to be somewhere in it, AFL Commission land, they have to have had a decision there that this is what we're going to do. And if they haven't, then they need to do so and work out what they're going to do. Yeah,
without notice, there's a case for and against. I get your point that it sort of then dragged out as far as, we went through Gold Coast and all the compromises of the draft, and then we went the Giants. But then if you've got them both coming at the time, the point that they get such a dominant draft hand is to try and make them better quicker. So then if you're halving the potential amount of talent that they could get through the draft, because now you're sharing. So just say Tassie's got 7 of the first 10 if it's just them coming in. If you just brought in, I'm not saying this is the next name, the Darwin Crocs. I'm just using that for an example. Now, instead of Tassie having 7 of the first 10 and being the first 5 and then the next 2 of the next 5, well, then you're going to have to split that top 10 with somebody else.
Or do you do something out of the box and you say for those particular years there's no academies, no father-sons, and we're just going to get them in and get them done as quickly as possible and get on with it, and rather than take 10 years to wash it through in 3 years. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I
know. I'm not pushing one barrow or another. But what I don't want to do is for the next 10 years, it's a bit like when people decide they're going to, dig up golf courses. If you're later in life, you don't want it to happen, do you? Because you just want to be able to go out and play your golf, but it might be good for the competition long term. I'd rather we got in and got it done. If we're going to go to 20, go to 20. If the thinking is that we need to bring in a 19th team in Tasmania and we need to have a 20th team then to balance it up, then let's get on with it. Let's not just keep going on and on and on. Let's actually have a plan and nail it, and then work through what needs to happen and nail it. And get on with it.
I don't disagree with that point of view. It's just it'd be definitely one that we'd have to think through carefully. Because I think every pro we could make for it, we could find a con for it, as like regarding draft, or regarding the cost, regarding the depth of talent, how we actually need a proper review, in my point of view, of our pathway system of players.
Totally.
What are we trying to do?
I was over in Western Australia the other day, having meetings, and I was with the Waffle and going through exactly those things, talking about all that. I think we're leaving so many good players on the table. I don't think there's a pathway now for tradies, and tradies is a huge element. Used to be a lot of our footballers were tradesmen. I think it's a lot harder for a tradie now. If you go and get a trade when you're 16 and you're working a day job, very hard to go and play for Caulfield Grammar or Melbourne Grammar, which seems to be the only way they're doing it. Same over in Western Australia. It's all very well if you're getting a scholarship to a private school and getting all the training, but if you're not, you're getting left for dead.
Yeah, I think we missed a big opportunity coming out of COVID to really review and come out the back of that. As you mentioned, what do we want the schools to do? Because it's not just the Victorian schools. I know in South Australia and WA, they've got private schools. What do we want to do with the Talent League here? What do we want to do with the Colts and the SA underage sort of stuff? What are we doing regarding? Is it a coaching pathway, or is it a coaching talent pathway? Is the anti-density rules in the Talent League actually setting our players up really well? Yeah, it served a purpose, but now I probably debate, is it actually setting the players up well?
Yeah, and not to mention Indigenous football.
Yeah, and can we address that issue? Like I know being involved at underage stuff, that we're missing plenty, but you want to help, but then you've got all these different barriers in the way from trying to actually help someone, not only from a football point of view, but a school and life point of view. So,
but the other thing, Jim, like in the period that I've been involved in this game, we completely killed off the VFA, who used to have 2 divisions of first, seconds and thirds, and pretty good grounds. Be handy having those for women's football at the moment as well, wouldn't it?
Yep.
And it was a pathway. It was a genuine pathway. There's a lot of players who aren't ready to play on a list when they're 17, 18 years of age. There are lots of kids who aren't in the development squad when they're 14. There are kids who are coming from overseas these days. There are kids who are coming from families who don't have a connection to Australian rules football. There are all sorts of the kids who haven't physically developed. Yeah. I just think there's plenty of players out there, but I just don't think we're getting them the right way. And then, of course, country football's got its own issues that we need to address.
And that connection piece too. There's so many squads and pathways and things like that. If you're a kid who you're talented, but you're not, well, you don't end up making, say, the AFL level. You've spent so much time away from your local football club, and now we manage obviously their loads, which is all good stuff because we don't want to cook kids. But like, you're losing that connection piece to what actually football is about, which is connecting with your local club. It's meeting Mr. and Mrs. Smith and their 3 kids, and John down the road who's the local under 15 coach, and it's always a sense of belonging and home. Yeah, that's my local football club, and I think with us trying to be so professional, so young, that we're sort of skipping a little bit of that because he's got to be part of this academy and that academy. He's part of that talent league program, and they actually don't have any real club. It's almost like they're subcontractors all the way through. And then if they don't make it, the kids who who haven't been that level of talent have had 6 or 7 years at Paran or Wangaratta or wherever it may be, or North Sydney. I'm just plucking clubs here, and they've always got a place. Yeah, and I don't know. That's just my initial top line thoughts.
It's interesting looking at the American system where they have your local kids, then you go to high school, okay, and you play with your high school group and things, and then you go to college. So you're at college, and now with the NIL, they're staying there a bit longer. So kids, but let's say they basically go to the NFL when they're 23. I think you've got to play 3 years, I think, minimum. Yeah. So let's say 18, 21, 22, 23 basically is when they're going there. So they're fully developed and they've had that amazing experience, and they've all got a degree. that seems to work. I mean, we don't have. I mean, our universities with sport have been completely useless, so we missed that. And we've always sort of headed down the Premier League style, getting apprentices in at 13 and all that type of thing. Now, I think that it's worth a discussion. If we're going to go develop, this is the other thing though, you're probably better off developing your pathways before you actually whack in a team and have no players to put them in. Anyway, for another day, Jim.
We got a little bit sidetracked. Let's go to David's question. Karma, for all those Carlton tears about the changes with the draft, maybe this is karma for when they cherry-picked Mike Fitzpatrick, Buzz, Ken Hunter, David McGuire, later Sticks. They flaunted the rules for a long time, so what goes around comes around. And despite all the ballyhoo about top picks, Murphy Reid goes at 17. Ollie Dempsey went 15 in the rookie draft. So,
yeah, well, throw Chris Judd into that as well. I think that's a bit tough on Carlton on that one. I mean, those were the days you could go and recruit players. It's as simple as that. They had the money and they paid it. There's no salary cap back in those days, so Ian Collins and the gang used to go over and just pick up all the good players in Western Australia. Basically, they did very well, and South Australia did for a fair while too. Yeah, Nailey and Craig Bradley should be in there as well.
Unbelievable players. This one's directed to you from Alex. Grand final public holiday. I've got an idea I reckon might be right in Ed's wheelhouse. Right now, the day before the AFL Grand Final is a public holiday with nothing really attached to it. It's sitting there, right next to the biggest sporting event in the country, but it has no real meaning, ritual, identity. So my idea is really simple. Let's turn it into Victoria Day. A statewide celebration of everything that makes Victoria great. Food, footy, music, local business, regional towns, beaches, pubs, markets, laneways, community pride, and of course, the people. It falls at the perfect time too. Winter is ending and spring has sprung. So hope and grass clippings are in the air.
Yeah, I mean, I like anything for that. If we had Victoria Day, we could actually go through the history of Victoria and the separation from the colony of New South Wales, which was a great day for our fair state. That all makes sense. So let me take it to another level. So one of the knocks on moving the grand final into the second week of October is that you don't have the build-up to the grand final because there's school holidays on at that stage. Now, I don't buy that one because you have the public holiday on the Friday. So that would make it actually work and would give kids a public holiday rather than just being part of school holidays. Now, I think largely the public holiday came in, I think, as much as anything to give the hospitality workers double time on one of the busiest days of the year, the day before the grand final. So what you could do is you could actually move the grand final to a Sunday and have the holiday on the Monday, which is what they do in New South Wales and Queensland around the grand final. That would actually match up. You could actually turn it into a national holiday, couldn't you? Football day, grand final day for both codes, because that's the way it's going to end up in 2027. I think we're going to play, I think the way it falls, correct me if I'm wrong here, Jim, is that we'll play on the Saturday and the NRL play their grand final on the Sunday night.
Well, why are we playing later again, Ed?
We're playing because of the sesquicentennial test.
There it is. There was actual.
But there's a potential logjam with the NFL that year as well, which is in discussion at the moment. And then, so that's why I reckon I like the idea of being the second week of October for the simple reason that you could actually have a bye before the preliminary finals and do Brownlow medal, All Australian, make it the full week, and that week could also be the week where you have all your local grand finals. Your VFLs, your Sandfuls, your Waffles, all the local. Imagine that on one weekend where local football becomes the focus. Then you've got your four best teams. So you'd have your preliminary finals. That would be up against the NRL grand final weekend, so we'd knock them off in the ratings. And then the following week we'd have clear air running into the grand final. I think would be ideal.
Yeah, I prefer the bye after the prelims just because of the whole concussion stuff. But I'm just...
Yeah.
Very, very minor.
Yeah, with you on that, but I'm sort of
you're coming from a.
I've got about 4 points. Yep. All that. All right. Public holiday, I suppose, so long as we get it. Do you get many long weekends? They actually don't call them long weekends anymore in Melbourne, do they? If you actually turn up, you get a special prize these days. David, read players doubling up. Should players be able to play a state league game and an AFL game on the same day or same weekend? Yes.
We've had occasional times that's happened where a player's been the emergency or they've been called up late. They've played a half in one or whatever it may be.
Enough rules. just get whoever you need into your top team to play and win. That's what it's all about.
Well, it kicked off young Logan Morris's career where he played a game in for the Lions in the twos, had a couple of Big Macs, and then went and played in the ones, and away he went.
Go.
Review solutions. This is from Daz.
Oh.
To help with contentious scoring calls where the ball passes over the top of the post, should the AFL investigate having a high-intensity or laser pointer style lights in the top of each post? If there's light shown on the ball during a review, then it's deemed to have passed over the post. Otherwise, it's a goal behind, out on the full, based on which side of the post the ball crossed the line. And also, why do the AFL only have cameras in the goalposts that face each other? Why not install cameras on the other side to face the behind post? There is definitive proof of mark, no mark, as per the Saints-Eagles game.
Right. Let me go back in time. Let me remember what we said on the footy show in about 2000. What you need to do, if you're going to actually have an arc and rely on it, is you need to have what they have at racing. It's called patrol film, okay? So they have their own vision and their own cameras to help the stewards. Completely different to the broadcast cameras. The broadcast cameras are there, set up and paid for by the broadcaster to give the best angles for the broadcast, not necessarily the best angles for adjudicating decisions. So if you're going to have this, then the AFL needs to invest and do that. If you remember back in the day, Jim, I pushed the idea of putting the goalposts, making them bigger after the 2002 travesty of Anthony Rocker's goal not being paid. And they put the bigger goalposts in. Now, you can actually make them bigger again. At Marvel, you can actually attach them to the roof if you want to and put a net up if you want. But you could actually go as high as you like in that situation. So that's a relatively easy solution. So there are ways of doing these things if you want to get to that result. But if you want to have the cameras, do it properly. We are doing what you can with the cameras that are available, and that's it. They put the cameras in the goalposts. I think the idea of having them between the goalpost and the behind post makes pretty much sense. The easiest way to do it would be to have 4 goal umpires.
Invest first before we get to the goal umpires. It's a nice try.
Why don't you like the goal umpires, by the way?
Because I think there's some far easier solutions than adding more people out there.
Yeah. No.
Complaining fans. What I don't get from AFL fans, and this is from Brett Oak, is the constant complaining about rule changes. This year, due to the rule changes, the standard game has been 100 times better than even last year, and this is coming from someone whose own team is on the bottom of the ladder. Yeah, some rules might need some minor tweaks, but seriously, well done to Greg Swan for having the courage to make those changes that have increased the quality a lot. What do you think?
Well, first of all, thank you to Leonie Swan for the letter that's come through. I agree. I think the game's going great. The problem is, the adjudication at times. No, we know that. We've been complaining about that since Jesus was Rob playing when he was fullback for Nazareth. It's been going for a fair while, that one. But yeah, look, it's things like, the stand rule. Stand rule works. People are getting used to it, but it's the free kick when somebody's not quite there. Now, there was 2 on the weekend. There was one that Sidey got for Collingwood, and there was one that the Tigers got against West Coast. Now, the West Coast one, Elliot Yeo just forgot the rule. He forgot that somebody had to stand. Now, again, in that situation, I would have liked the umpire to go, blow the whistle, Elliot, come up and stand. Help him with it. It was too big an impost on that game. It changed the game, and ultimately Richmond won, and that played a big part of it. We have to be firm on the decisions because being weak on them is no different to being firm on them. But at the same time, with that rule that changes, it doesn't make an impact on the game if you blow the whistle and go up on the mark. If the player plays on, that's his prerogative, and good luck to him. But if in that situation, I think it's just too much of an impost on a player, unless they're deliberately trying to waste time.
Yep. No, I'm all fine with that, Ed.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, Jim, great to be with you, mate. We'll talk more tomorrow about the weekend's action. But thank you to our friends at Hyundai and at Fiji Airways. This has been Eddie and Jimmy.